Hey everybody, I hope you're having a truly spectacular day today. Welcome to episode 2 of Cruising Through Life. Love doing it with you. Love sharing in the fun. Today we're talking about a topic that we've talked about a little bit recently. I've talked about it in some videos, but we're making it on the podcast now. We're talking about the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. And Disney's, a lot of people have said, hey, this is one of Disney's biggest failures yet. Now, Disney and every company in the world that wants to achieve success must have failure. It's absolutely critical. The only way to learn, go through life, have positive impacts wherever you are is to have failures along the way. It's the only way we get better at things, 100%. Only way. So failure is never a bad thing, in my opinion, especially for a business and one that's trying to kind of make a bigger impact. But there have been a tremendous number of failures recently from Disney. I'm going to list a couple of them. We're going to talk about them. But this one in particular is starting to kind of stick in everyone's mind as a pretty big one, actually, because it was pretty kind of in your face about it. So let's talk about a few things. Let's actually take a trip back in time. We're going back in time. And we're talking about Disney Quest. Now, for a while, Disney Quest was one of the indoor, interactive, fantastic attractions at Walt Disney World. Disney actually promoted it so much at one point that it appeared actually in several of their commercials where it's raining outside, you got a storm going on out there, and you can enjoy a family fun time inside of Disney Quest. Now, why did it fail? Why did it eventually become, basically a relic of the past? Especially, it basically rotted away in front of us all the way till it closed 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. The reason why, simply put, is because Disney did not maintain it. They did not do what they needed to do to ensure that it had continued success. I've spoken to many who have said that if Disney Quest was still around today, I would be one of the first in line. I'm telling you, I would wait in line for a while to get into Disney Quest, even as it was. Now, why is that? Well, is it just the nostalgia piece? Maybe. Honestly, that could be part of it. Could be, 100%. But I also enjoyed that experience. I could pay a fee, right? It cost money. I pay money, and then I go and play these games. And the cost, for someone who had an annual pass or one of these other tickets, was just not making sense for Disney to continue to have it and maintain it. Now, they could have saved it. They absolutely could have saved it, and I believe this is something that they could have done. I'm getting to a point here with the Galactic Star Cruiser. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten where we are. But they could have spent a significant amount of money, saved it, revitalized it, and created something totally new, fantastic, and really made something incredible. Now, I'm thinking about this today because they didn't do that. And the other day I was at Disney Springs, walking around, having a good time, walking towards that side of Disney Springs, and I saw the abandoned building, just empty, sitting there, abandoned, dark window building. Just terrible. Eyesore at Disney Springs, which I think should be addressed because they have an empty building sitting at Springs that no one is using. Now, is Disney using this as kind of a tax strategy? So they don't have to, if something fails, they don't have to take tax. There's a whole tax stuff that I'm actually not super familiar with. I just know the very basics that Disney may be using with that building for Disney Quest. But needless to say, it is an empty spot where people really used to enjoy it, and now they can't. So did Disney make a mistake with Disney Quest? Many would say yes, and I would say yes. I do believe that they made a critical mistake with Disney Quest, and they could have done so much more. They could have. You think about virtual reality, you think about augmented reality, you don't even have to go down that track. You think about, okay, Apple's now got this Apple Vision, whatever, looks like Ready Player One on your face. That's coming into your home, but there's something different about playing as a group of people. Human beings, we must play. It's part of our development. It's part of our growth. Anybody in, probably the educational space will tell you that play is extremely important for human development, especially with other people, right? And at Disney Quest, we had the opportunity to do that at least to a degree. At least to a degree, we could play with others. There's so many examples. There's the car racing games, just going around playing I think it wasn't the DuckTales, but it was the I'll remember in a minute. You're probably thinking of it too, but it was that one where you kind of sit in the middle and you have like a ping pong. Everybody's kind of working together as a team. We had these experiences. We'd see each other and be able to have fun together. If Disney Quest was still around right now, I almost guarantee if they had made very minor updates to it, it would be thriving right now, just because Disney is so popular and people would go and enjoy it with their families. I really, truly believe that. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But I think that a lot of people are really wishing for that back, at least to a degree. But let's get back to what we're talking about here. Why did Disney close it? Well, it's too much to maintain. They didn't want to spend money. And Bob Iger wanted to spend that money on a truly failed NBA experience. Now, many people actually said this was going to happen. When you look at what happened to Universal, Universal tried something very similar and it failed, and Disney didn't learn from them. And this is the piece that I think needs to be addressed. And a lot of people don't want to talk about it, and that's okay, but I'm going to. If you don't learn from the mistakes of others, you're going to just end up making them. And this is what Disney did with the NBA experience. NBA experience was open for an extremely short period of time. Despite, it not being that expensive to go in, despite Disney giving away free admission for many people, despite so many things that Disney tried to do to prop up this experience, it simply didn't work. Why didn't it work? Because nobody wanted to do it, plain and simple. And the people who did were too far and few between. Now, you may say, hey, you know what? This could be the same thing that would have happened with Disney Quest. And you may be right. I fully admit that you may be right that if Disney had kind of updated Disney Quest, it would have been too, few and far between folks who really wanted to go to it. And that could be the case, but I don't think so. Because the NBA experience failed incredibly quickly and Disney Quest lasted for a long, long time. Now, there have been other attempts towards something like Disney Quest. We saw it for a while, kind of at the other end of Disney Quest, which was great. You played Star Wars. That was so much fun. It was kind of a demo of an idea that they had for a while. But needless to say, that building failed and the follow-up building failed. There have been other failures recently, for sure. The Enchantment fireworks show and Harmonious. Both fireworks shows, in my opinion, were not very good and not up to the Disney standard as we would have hoped. There are multiple reasons why, but needless to say, they didn't work. And I think Disney realized it didn't work. And then they tore, this is the most interesting part. They tore apart and dismantled and completely destroyed. I'm going to just take a guess. This is not accurate, but hundreds of millions of dollars worth of projection equipment on those barges. That to me is just like, whoa, like that big of a mistake. I cannot imagine they did that simply for tax purposes. Like, I know a lot of people are arguing, hey, this could just be for taxes and a tax shelter and all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that because it's not really how that works. I don't see that those barges were clearly a mistake from day one. If they had just removed the ring and kept the other barges with a brand new show, I actually might have been on board with it, but they dismantled all of it. They ripped the whole thing down. Now, if that was planned, I fully don't understand it. Now, given how fast it came apart, I almost think it was. I mean, that was fast. It came all down. It was gone. And I was like, okay, that's pretty fast. But needless to say, Disney has replaced both of those shows at this point. Back to Happily Ever After at Magic Kingdom, which is a spectacular show, and eventually a new show coming to Epcot. So failures there, but Disney is making corrective action to hopefully make, Happily Ever After is already a great show, but Epcot, we're all hoping is a spectacular show. Now let's get to the Galactic Star Cruiser. And the reason why I pointed these out is because it kind of gives us reference, right? Because Galactic Star Cruiser, when you think of it, is like, okay, it's this brand new thing Disney's never done before. And the reality is, no, they haven't. But from the start, I mean, it was a really good idea. And I was one of the first people to say, I want to go. I will pay. It'll be great. Now, when I said I'm going to pay, right, I did not say I wanted to pay double or triple the cost of a cruise. Right? That's not what I said. I also didn't say I want them to remove the Star Wars cruise experience from the Disney Cruise Line, right? Just in order to kind of promote the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. But after just over a year, the Star Cruiser is closing. It's officially sold out at this point. I never had the opportunity to go, and to be honest with you, I feel like I spent my money better on cruises, and I had a great time. So the Galactic Star Cruiser, what is it? If you don't know already, it's okay. It was basically a 2-night experience where you'd go and spend most of one day at Hollywood Studios, where you can pay for the ticket to go in there, or be an annual pass and go in there. And the rest of it was kind of a dining experience or two at the Star Cruiser and a couple of games that you played inside the Star Cruiser. The cost of this experience, and of course it was varying, 1 person, 2 person, 4 people, the type of cabin you were in, but averaging in the general sense, $6,000. For this basic, I'm going to call it a 48-hour experience, may have been slightly more, but here's the other thing. It featured quote unquote new Star Wars. Why is that? Some people said, hey, if it was Darth Vader, if it was Luke Skywalker, if it was all these people, you would have gone. And that may have been the case for sure, but needless to say, price for $6,000. I just want to say that just so that everybody is on board. I can't get over it. I just can't get over it. For basically one day at Hollywood Studios and about a day in this building that from the outside looks like a prison. So why did Disney do this? Was it was this all just a test to see if we would like this kind of thing? Well, if it was, then it doesn't seem like a very smart test because you're not testing that many people. You're not testing the average family. You're testing those who can afford to go, and that's great, but you're not testing the individual who maybe wants to bring a family with 2 kids. That clearly is not what you're testing at all. Clearly, you're testing a completely different clientele who maybe wants to just experience that just, for no other reason, just to bring themselves, right? Maybe go with a roommate. And that, I think, is Disney's trying to figure out who this would appeal to. But it failed after a very short period of time. Could they do it correctly? Could they update it or make a different cosplay style experience that could potentially work? I think they could. I do. But I don't think it's going to cost $6,000. I don't. Because that is, in my opinion, completely outrageous. And I think that Disney probably knew it, but think about it. You can, this is kind of funny. You can get one of the new Apple Vision Pro things that, again, I mentioned this in the earlier one, looks like a Ready Player One helmet for less than half the cost of a Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser experience. And you can have that for a long, long time. Now, what would you use that for? I don't know, but maybe you could create your own Star Wars universe in there, in this helmet that you're wearing on your head in your living room. I don't know. But needless to say, the cost was prohibitive. And I think it made it destined to fail. Now, another big question that comes up, why didn't Disney just reduce the price? Well, clearly, it was one of 2 reasons. Either it was just a giant test, right? And they had always planned on closing it, which doesn't really make sense considering the gigantic investment in the building, the signage, the roads. Like all of this had to be done. Vehicles, it's an unbelievable amount of stuff had to be done. So I don't think it was a test. I think the reality is they realized that they couldn't make their money back fast enough, and people really weren't going that much, and it was just way too expensive, and it just didn't make sense. They had to close it. What will they do with the building? Everybody has been guessing. Yeah, it's anybody's best guess. They could think of several things they could do with it, and I've heard every idea under the sun. But I think that Disney will likely not use that building for a while, which will make another freestanding building not being used, if that is the case. So again, I can't confirm that at this time. But if it is, like the Disney, the NBA Experience building, which is no longer being used either, it begs the question, why? Failure, as I mentioned, with a business is very important. You learn, you grow, you experience. And this failure, I think, could have been predicted. I really do. And I think the real reason why this Galactic Star Cruiser came about and then failed was because I don't believe the right people are making the decisions that need to be made and need to be said in these meetings. Imagine you're in a meeting and someone says, hey, I got this idea. Let's do this interactive hotel. You're like, okay, that sounds great. It's going to feature Star Wars. People are going to be able to dress up, do these things. Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. You're going to be there for 2 nights and it's going to cost $6,000. Whoa, wait a minute. What? What did you say? And so I think that needs to be said in these meetings, and I'm guessing that is not being said. I'm guessing that it's not being transmitted up to the top where, hey, this is a great idea in concept, in theory, but we've got to find a way to make it accessible to the everyday person and make it enjoyable for everyone, and perhaps also allow the Star Wars cruises to continue. Now, this is the other point that I wanted to make. Disney, one of the best cruises that I went on were the themed cruises on board the Disney Cruise Line, the Marvel Day at Sea and Star Wars Day at Sea. I loved those cruises. Absolutely love them. I would recommend them to anyone. If you're thinking about going on a themed cruise, don't even bother with Pixar. Go Marvel Day at Sea. Why did Disney change one of the cruise experiences from Star Wars to Pixar? And Pixar is far less than Star Wars was. In my opinion, they wanted to push the Galactic Star Cruiser. Now that the Galactic Star Cruiser has failed and is closing, the question becomes, what are they going to do about the cruise line? I am hoping beyond hope that they bring back the Star Wars Day at Sea. It was absolutely incredible. They've got all the material they need. They don't need to do a thing to it. They can literally leave it just as it was. No update necessary. Same show, same everything. And just put it back. I hope they do. I know I'm not alone there. It is one of the absolute best. And if they do bring it back, that is a Disney cruise that I cannot recommend highly enough. Marvel Day at Sea is also amazing. I'd recommend it. Pixar, they basically have a cheapened version for Pixar Day at Sea. They just didn't bring the same magic that I've seen on many of these other experiences throughout the Disney Cruise Line. So I'm hoping that Star Wars Day at Sea does come back, but we'll have to wait and see if Disney decides to make that change. Now, for the Galactic Star Cruiser, again, do I think they're going to do something like this in the future? Do I think that Disney could potentially bring around something else to replace the Galactic Star Cruiser? I think the reality is that Disney right now is not focused on things like that. Their stock price is pretty low at the moment, and they have a lot of catching up to do. But one thing that a lot of people have noticed is the lack of theming, the lack of imagination that we're seeing in several of the other new resorts being built. And at the moment of this recording, the Polynesian Village Resort is getting its new building put up right next to the Grand Floridian. And we're all really excited about it. It's going to be great. But the thing that we're all wondering is, what's the theming going to look like? Because a lot of us have seen a really big decline in some of the theming that Disney's been doing recently. More importantly, as we're thinking about this more specifically, the Grand Floridian Resort and Spa is getting a retheme that does not look up to the grand standards. The Boardwalk got this coffee shop that kind of looks very basic and plain. And I'll be honest with you, the Hyperspace Lounge is extremely basic and plain. Now, this is something that Disney can absolutely work on, and I'm one of the ones who really hopes that Disney does work on this and does prioritize the creative aspect. They absolutely can. They've had this ability for so long to bring us to new places, to make us feel transported, and that's the hope, that they kind of get back to that priority. And this is a common problem, and I think a big solution can be, you've got to be thinking longer term, right? The Galactic Star Cruiser, was that going to be around for 15 or 20 years? Was that the idea originally behind it? Because if it wasn't, it's something that I think needs to be reconsidered. I think Disney's got to think longer term when it comes to these kind of experiences, and that way everyone who wants to experience the whatever it is that comes in the future will have that opportunity. And I think that's kind of the idea behind how Disney can make improvements in the future. Now, a lot of people may have different opinions on this, but I think that overall Disney can make some updates to make it feel even better for families all around the world. So hope you enjoyed this kind of look at my thoughts on some of the Galactic Star Cruiser and how Disney can continue to improve. I really hope that they do. And I think that over time they will. I really, really do. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for sharing it with me. Until next time, have a magical day, and a special thanks to our Patreon production team for making all of our content possible. See you later, everybody.